Coming at you live, y'all. So I wanted to welcome y'all to the channel, and I wanted to speak on this empty seater situation. I spoke on it 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's several different articles that I read in regards to this, and it went over how these individuals, these narcissists, overt, covert, whoever, sociopaths, histrionics, and the borderline. The borderline is what happens is the pre to what covert turns into. So the borderline is someone that acts out, has a lot of emotions, and the covert narcissist is what happens is if the borderline, the next level, that's where they keep their emotions inside and work on a more cool level, and they act more in the passive aggressive nature of things. They held all their emotions in, and this is the next level. And then you get into what ends up becoming the malignant narcissist. From there is if they continue down that path of losing more and more of their self, they begin to get malignant. And in that malignancy, they can have the dark triad, or what people call the dark tetrad, where it's narcissism mixed with Machiavellian and psychopathy, which is antisocial, where they get sadistic with you and they insidiously work like a malignant cancer to infect you and to continue to infect you until the infection takes over completely. As a child, this individual goes down the path of, well, they want something, but they can't have it. So they figure out that they can either manipulate for it or steal it to get it. And this is what kind of gets them in the nature of the fight or flight, because that's a survival type mechanism of the body, of the brain. It's a function of the brain that's typically used in fear and survival, and it's built on lack. But the narcissist goes down these paths and creating new pathways in the brain because it is a shortcut to getting what they couldn't have when they asked for it. So now they find a way to manipulate their mind into, how can I still get it? And it's kind of like if you wanted to go withdraw money from the bank, but you had insufficient funds, but there's another way to get that money out of the bank. You can go grab a gun and rob it. You see, this is kind of along the lines of how fight or flight would work. But fight or flight is meant to, and this is where I think a lot of people get sidetracked, and I don't think it's necessarily all by accident either, but some sort of an agenda as well. Because this is the spirit that runs our society, our communities and our governments and our large entities and corporations. That's why you won't see empathic people in those positions, or people that have the option or the opportunity or the ability to love will never get there. And that's why the world is functioning the way it is. I call it the beast system, because you almost have to act like the beast of the field. But like I've said before, even beasts have some sort of love for their kin, so to speak. They'll protect them. They'll nurture them. I mean, the narcissist does none of this. And so this is the spirit that you see in the world today that's taking over, like a malignancy. And it is sadistic, meaning they get off on other people's pain. They get adrenaline from it. When you give up on love, you tend to go towards the addiction of the adrenaline from the sadism. Causes you to get high. And when you go down these pathways of fight or flight and you make it a commonality, you make it an everyday thing, because the mind or the brain is the laziest organ system. It can be rewritten. If you go down, say, an evil construct over a period of time, it will carve out a new pathway, and those old pathways will become atrophied, meaning atrophy is muscle weakness. Say if you had some sort of injury to your arm, a stroke per se, and you can't move it anymore because you have no control over it because of the neural pathways that are obsolete now due to the infarct. It will start to atrophy, meaning because you don't use your muscle, it will begin to weaken, get flabby, and lose its elasticity and its blood flow. And other things can come from that. Contractures, subluxation, all kinds of different things. And when you get into the mind in pathways that were given to us at birth, which I call the pathways of humanity, when your innate spirit is corrupt, I believe that your mind, will, and emotions can be affected and affect what goes on in your life, but it does not affect your innate spirit. I believe that your innate spirit does not change. But in this world system, it comes into fruition, and you are playing out what your destiny always has been. It's kind of the idea of that if God is the Almighty and He knows the beginning from the end, everybody is predestined. You cannot be imperial, almighty, and all-knowing and not knowing how your creation would turn out. So that is how predestination is. And I believe that we are, and in our innate self, we're always going to be who we are. And these are, us living on this earth is just a reflection of that, because at some point in our future, post-earth, we are going to have to be judged for the things that we did here on the earth. And many may say that it's having to do with your environment around you. Your environment does affect your mind, will, and emotions. But at the end of the day, I don't believe at all that it affects your innate spirit. That even if it affected you and it brought you to a certain level, that if your innate spirit was whatever it was when you were at birth, that you are going to, if you're a champion, you're going to push through that. If you're going to find God, you're going to find Him. If you're not, if you're going to walk the evil path, if you're going to run to evil, you're going to do it, almost at birth even. That's why some people will say that these individuals were evil at birth. And the trauma situation, that everything that occurred was based on the trauma that the child occurred in early age, doesn't have a whole lot of grounds to stand on, because a lot of people have received ample more trauma than the individual called the narcissist and never became one. And a lot of times you're getting this information from a pathological liar, and they're always going to play the victim, and they're live in victimhood. So most of this information is coming from a pathological liar and cheater and manipulator. And that's where that information is coming from, that you get from the psychologists and psychiatrists. To where the true victim, I hate to use that term, but the unaware individual, we can call us, was more of the victim than anybody. And it perpetuated longer that these individuals were evil at an early age. It even talks in, I think it was one of our subscribers turned me on to this, I think it was Psalms 58, where it talks about that children were born. Many children were born, and it speaks on that they were evil at birth, that they ran evil right away, almost at first breaths, that they could never be convinced of anything other. And it talks about the children of Belial, which is to say, the sons and daughters of the enemy Satan, like perfectly evil, that are born, grow up, and in our society, they grow up with us, like the tares spoken of. They look like us, but they bear no fruit. They're pompous. They never submit to God in any way, or to humanity when they're showing goodness and love towards them. That they are pompous and froward in each and every way, that they hate life itself. And so the narcissist goes down this path early in age because they cannot get it because they ask for it. How can they take it? How can they manipulate for it? And what it does is it shuts down. There's these certain pathways in the brain that normally would operate. And fight or flight is meant for instance, like 911. You call it for an emergency. You don't call it when you scrape your arm or your leg. You put a bandage on that. They're using the 911 route for everything because they're greedy, manipulative, they're sadistic, they are Machiavellian. Could have had trauma mixed in with it, but still their innate spirit was going to go that way regardless. But they end up going down the route of in fight or flight. And in fight or flight, you become a taker, a manipulator. And the pathways that are of the fruits of the spirit, which would be considered humanity, but truly in your heart. And we have to work on this every day. I call this your shadow self. That's what they call it in, I guess, psychology and stuff. But that's your inner self, things that you need to work on, maybe nobody else knows about, to be your best person, to defeat strongholds in your life, to become authentically genuine. What they do is they go down this pathway, and this pathway is that you have to put a mask on. Now, in fight or flight, you don't have to put a mask on because it would be genuine. If you're being chased by someone with a gun, you're going to run as fast as you can. You're not even going to think about going to the restroom. It's not necessary. This is fight or flight. You're not thinking about love and all these things. You may have to steal to eat food to get by, things like that. But these individuals go down this route to manipulate the mind. And they do it for so long, it becomes a constant effort. It's like they're calling 911 every day when they have a scratch. That would be a manipulation. You're not going to use medic for a scratch every day. You're not going to have EMTs come to your house and wasting their time when there's other people out there dying so they can come to your house when all you needed was a Band-Aid. So they go down this pathway. It's this pathway of manipulation. They continue down this pathway, and it creates a new dent in the mind, in the brain. And the original pathway of the fruits of the spirit, love, joy, peace, kindness, hope, faith, long-suffering, goodwill, encouragement, all of these things that come with the normal aspects of the mind and the brain, those become atrophied. And this new pathway is formed. And because they run down this pathway so long, it creates a canal. And it becomes just like if you walk on a pathway long enough, the first time you walk on it, you got to break branches and you got to make your way through the woods, right? We all did this as children. But if you walk on it every day, because it's a shortcut, you're going to start to see that it's a pathway. Everybody's going to see it. That the grass isn't going to grow. The branches are going to be broke to where you have a big way to get through there. Because you're going to continually make it easier for you to go down that path. It's called the path of least resistance, and that's what they turned it into. It's the path of least resistance. Now, to go down the pathway of the fruits of the spirit, that would be normal type of humanity. People that want to be good and seek goodness instead of evil. These individuals go down this pathway. Well, what goes down this pathway is the lack of love and the fruits of the spirit, because normally it would be used for an emergency. But because they're manipulators, just like they were in your life, they manipulated even their brain. And over time, it shuts down all of the fruits of the spirit because they're all tethered to love, y'all. And when that happens, that's how you become reprobate. Because you lose your state of humanity. Because without love and without the fruits of the spirit, that's why a lot of people will say they're not even human. And you become acting robotic, like artificial intelligence. Even people will talk about in intercourse and all different things. They seem like they're robotic, and they do. I'm just like y'all. I've experienced this stuff. So they go down this pathway of manipulation. And this is where you start to open doors. So you could have demon attachment as a young child over a short period of time, just the way your spirit is innately. Then as you become worse and you start to manipulate more and more, you're building a construct. And this construct forces you to put a mask on because you're going to manipulate for everything. You're going to lie for everything. You're stealing and cheating and getting over on people. And the faces, I'm telling you, the faces I saw in this individual when time stood still, I had several faces I had seen at different times. But when I had time stand still, one of the faces that I saw was a mask. It was physical, but I saw it physically, a whole array of faces and things that occurred. I spoke on it in podcast before, from point to point of what all happened. I had time stand still and physically saw these faces on this individual, and it was spiritual, of course, and there was people all around. But it wasn't until I understood I was getting understanding about narcissism, and I was in a relationship with this individual at one point in time. And it had gotten to a point where there would be arguments that we would have, and gaslighting involved, and manipulation, and all kind of lying and cheating, and it was a horrible situation that occurred over several cycles, over several years. And when I got onto narcissism, I was onto the psychological side of things, but then over time I realized that the way that this individual argued that it was demonic in nature, that there's no way that humanity could operate this way. And when I started to look in search engines and things in regards to demons and narcissism, a whole bunch of other stuff popped up. And when I started to learn about this shortly after I had dealt with this individual and I had seen each other in a public place, is when this major time of these phases occurred. And I'll never be the same. So there's nobody that's going to convince me that this is not a spiritual issue, but they go down this road and they continue to go down this road, and this side of the mind or the brain starts to atrophy. And at some point in time, it shuts down. And when it shuts down, and this pathway is wide open, and this is the pathway that's used consistently on a minute to minute, second to second, every day, every moment in time, this is the way they think now. This gets shut down, and this is, in my opinion, how they lose their love. And when you lose love, all 9 of the fruits of the Spirit that are spoken of in the Word, that normal humanity would have, those are all shut down. They're all tethered to love. If you don't have love, you have no kindness, you have no joy, you have no hope, you have no peace, you have no long suffering, you have no goodwill towards individuals. It gets replaced with hate and jealousy and envy and manipulations, cheating, lying pathologically. You see, evil. This is an evil construct. And you open doors to, now you may have, this individual may have demons attached to them on the outer, so to speak, but when they continue to go down this path, it opens up, just like we would talk about holes in our aura, chinks in our armor, where the narcissist knew we had childhood wounds. What did they do? They poked a sharp object in there and they cracked it open wider. And then they took that thing, and that injury you had that maybe you were either unaware of from childhood, or you have built your own construct around it to protect it. Well, the narcissist was able to see right through it, and you became vulnerable with them, and you began to love them and trust them, and you let them in your vulnerability. That's another type of aura. This has come to me now. So it's like you have different levels of your aura, your field of protection that surround you, and like say the spirit realm, and you let them in past all of those auras of protection into that vulnerable place. And when you did that, they were able to get in there, and it's like they're bending all that metal open from the armor where that was a chink, and they make it big. Then they go in there and they're stabbing it. They're inflaming it. And then they start nitpicking at everything else. Next thing you know, your armor's all busted up to pieces, and you're still trying to love this individual. You're still trying to find a way to help this individual. And you just can't, y'all. But this is what they do to you. And when this is what kind of happens in the situation with the narcissist, they have these, when you open doors, like you open the door to the narcissist, okay, they were the one that came in and attacked you with the demons inside of them. They were attacking, the demon was attacking through the human and stabbing you and sticking you. It was still you getting a demon attachment through a human being that you allowed into your life is good. But the narcissist, they didn't have another human being necessarily, and it could have happened like that for them, maybe through a parent, but nevertheless, their innate spirit was going to do this anyway. This is my point. It wouldn't matter where they grew up. Because then when you grow up in a good family, they'll say, well, you were just a golden child. I mean, if you look at what caused the narcissists to become what they are, if you just look up what's defined as, it's trauma or it's being pampered. Well, everything else is in the middle. I mean, but that's the whole spectrum. That's like saying nothing. And so they get in there and they open these doors wide open. They're telling the demons to come in. And they do. They get not just attachment, but they get indwelt and possessed. But see, when love goes, it takes the other 8 fruits of the Spirit with it. And the narcissist, tell me, your narcissist in your life, I don't know them, but I guarantee you, if they didn't have love, they didn't have joy, they didn't have peace, they didn't have long suffering with you or goodwill towards individuals. They didn't have kindness. There was no hope, no faith. You couldn't count on them for anything. The moment you need them, they're gone. The moment you need their love, it's hate. The moment you need their assistance, they're manipulating you. They're ghosting you. There is no peace in a relationship with a narcissist. This is all what tells you that they're dealing with demons. But once the demon gets in there, and now you got this construct where love and all the 9 fruits of the Spirit are all shut off, shut down, turned off. And they cannot be turned back on because in your right frontal lobe, it just gets shut down. Now you have an anatomical issue as well that cannot be changed. And this is why in the Bible it talks about in Romans 1 and in 2 Timothy that there are certain individuals that are reprobate, meaning they've gone down this evil construct so long that God has let go of them, and they're still on the earth, y'all. And there's nothing they can do to fix it. Like, they're so vile and evil, they don't even want to change. They enjoy the addiction of getting off on people's pain for adrenaline. They changed love, they turned in love for adrenaline. They did the Judas thing in their own life. They said, here, devil, here's my fruits of the Spirit, and here's my opportunity for salvation. Take that. I'm turning that in for 40 pieces of silver. Well, their 40 pieces of silver was power and control and manipulation. And they are gifted with that now. And damned at the same time. And so this is what's going on with the narcissist. The self-aware narcissist that you hear online, God makes the enemy tell the truth in every which way. If you're with the narcissist long enough, they will tell you the truth, and you'll hear it in between the lines. You have to read in between the lines. They'll tell you they're a manipulator. They'll tell you they're a bullshit artist. They'll tell you they're a cheater. They'll show you these things, and they'll slap you in the face with them once they get you under their control. It's not because necessarily that they slipped or that they wanted to, but they have to. And so that's what happens. And the truth always has to come out, period. It's built, God put it in the foundations of this world system, whether you like it or not. That's why you want to be careful of the things you do, because they will find you out. Maybe not today, but they will find you out. And that's why it's good to repent for it quickly. And God may cover it. And that's why repentance is important. But it's the goodness of God that leads a man to repentance. And so they go down this route, and they continue down this route, and they just get better at their craft. And they walk in shame. Like I said, I don't even know if it's shame for the things they've done to us. Maybe there is minute aspects of that, but I think it's even deeper than that. I think it's their shame is because God, their creator, let them go while they still are on the earth in their what we would consider and call our state of being tested. Earth is a state of being tested. We're being tested. We were being put through the fire, y'all. And so when they give up on that, they lose the 9 gifts of the Spirit or fruits of the Spirit. And then they lose their innate spirit, their innate self. It goes with it. Or it gets completely corrupt, and I believe it leaves. They have no inner voice, and that's why they have to run around and always attach themselves to somebody. If they leave your house, they're going to cheat on you and go right to supply number 2's house and supply number 3's house, and then come back to you, and then go to their family, and then go here, their flying monkey, and then back to you, and then supply number 2 and supply number 3. And they're just having intercourse with all of them. They have no type that they will have intercourse with. They just want somebody to be there with them because they have no inner voice. And when you have no inner voice, you are truly alone when you're alone. And that's scary. I wouldn't want to be with it by myself either if I was like that. They are the true codependent, y'all. There is nobody more codependent than that. So that's why they do some of the things they do. They can never be alone. They can never tell the truth. God hates a liar, y'all. Satan is the father of lies. I've never seen anybody outside of a narcissist construct, a cluster B construct, that can lie pathologically. They'll lie about going to get gas at the gas station, and maybe that's what they did, but they'll lie to you about it. Even on things they don't have to. So this is in short kind of what happened. And once you give up on it, shut it down, tell God you don't want it, and then turn your anatomy into some other new construct, you're almost like a hybrid. If they have no inner voice, and if the only inner voice that they get is the voice of the demons that are possessing. Now, they're not just, and this is why they're permanent possession. Because even if you got them delivered, they would still be the embodiment of a demon, because they act and operate just like them with no demons in them, because they built the construct, whether or not it was, they built the construct before the demons even got in them. It's like they changed their anatomy to operate in the demonic construct now permanently. So you can extract all the demons in the world, but first of all, you have to have different things occur before you can extract demons. You have to be willing to forgive. You have to understand that you are not a God status, that you are not built in perfection and you are in a perfect state, that you are a God. And you have to give up on pride. Those are three things that narcissists will never be able to do. That's why when you hear self-aware narcissists, they never talk about the spiritual side or how they got delivered or anything spiritual, because they're still narcissists. They're aware of who they are, but they've just intertwined themselves more with it. Now they are a self-aware narcissist is like what some people would call an ultra narcissist. That's where they get to make more decisions with the demons inside them. So the demon, I believe, is now housed in the space of the innate spirit spot. So I don't know if you can even get the demon out of the place of the innate spirit self spot. And if you could, would they just drop dead? Or would they just they're on autopilot now, intertwined with demons, running around aloof? They are vagabonds. They're just going from energy to suck and to get some new experience through other people's energies. We all have different types of fuel. So they go from your fuel to this fuel to that fuel to that fuel. They're all eclectic by their nature, because your energy is based on your experiences and your innate spirit intertwined with your experiences. But that's what they love. They love to go to different types of fuels and experience them. That's all the narcissist is doing. But they will never settle down. They will never have any grounding, and they will never build anything off of that. They will always be running until the day they perish. And so part of the spell, when you're coming out of it and you're almost out of it, is to say, I want to help the narcissist. And it draws you back in for another set of cycles where now you know who they are and you want to help them because you have love. But that's like toward the end of the spell, it draws you back in. And then what happens when you start pulling away from that? The narcissist comes at you with, I've changed, I've met the Lord, or I've listened to some of the things that people were telling me I probably should have did, and I decided that that's what I was going to do, and I made changes in my life. They'll never even give you credit for it because they can't. They'll never apologize because they can't. But this is the tactic and the roles that they go for, because that's all they got. And then from there, if you continue down the wrong path, the enemy will send you a stronger narcissist. You may have had a borderline starts out, then you'll have a narcissist, or a histrionic narcissist, and then you'll have an upper level, mid-range narcissist, someone who's self-aware maybe. And then you get into the malignancies and the sociopathies and the psychopathies. And this is how the enemy works. The soldiers become officers and generals of the enemy because you still refuse to do what you need to do to correct these situations in your life. This is what happens. New levels, new devils. So they will come at you. If you continue down the wrong path and you continue to stay asleep, God will keep sending them stronger and stronger as you get away from the other ones, the weaker ones. You defeat the borderline, then you have the narcissist or the histrionic, then the narcissist, then you get the psychopathy, whatever it's going to take to shake you awake. Because God's telling you. He's calling you out from amongst the world. And this is long, but this is, in fact, the way the spiritual side of narcissism works. Is there a psychological aspect? Absolutely. But I personally believe, just like everything else, everything starts in the spirit realm first before it ever becomes in this physical realm or psychological realm. And if you stay with them long enough, you'll start to see demon faces just like I did. But you don't want to have to get there. You ought to know better just by the character of these individuals at some point in time. They're the exact character of the enemy, Satan, in the Bible. And it's not who you want to settle down with, because you can't anyway. They only can run cycles. Evil, manipulative, Machiavellian, sadistic narcissists can only run cycles, short cycles, because they cannot love. And they get bored. This is all built into the construct. They get enticed. This is the psychological aspects of it. But this is to cover up the spiritual aspects underneath the psychological aspects that are in the real control of the seat. And the world doesn't want you to know this, because this is the hierarchy of the world system. That's why they don't really teach it very much, because this is what they use in every government, in every major corporation and company. These are the people at the top. So if you can give me a like, subscription, and thumbs up till next time. Love y'all. Peace. Soldier up. We out.